Why is this important? So I think Rob's right. Rob's right.
And that's
I'm
how
gonna,
I
isolate
did
that out of the recording and just have that on repeat somewhere.
Just that as a clip, an audio clip.
This is why my wife doesn't do podcasting with me, because if she ever says I'm right, she knows I'm just going to isolate that. And, that'll be the ringtone. Rob's right. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I've known this all along. No,
Rob's right.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Rob's right.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Rob's right.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
I did it that time.
Yes, you did. You actually got a perfect sync there.
I really paid attention, like super hard attention.
All right. Well, good job.
Thanks.
Good morning, Lindsay.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I have a book recommendation. Can I recommend a book real quick?
But it's not book club.
I know, but we can still talk about books, though. Actually, we need to talk about that,
but it's
too.
Not book club.
No, we're talking about books now. This is what we're doing.
But it's not book club.
But listen.
Wait, what? All right. Wait a minute.
What?
You have a bone to pick with what my recommendation was? Is that what you're saying?
No, I can't wait to read it, frankly. But I think we should tell people, again, like remind people about this book because it's like a tome.
Okay.
It's like 800 pages long. So
it is not it's a good
I can't
book.
wait to read it. Don't get me wrong, but I have to rag at you for recommending an 800-page book. That's all. I just have to tease you because it's what I do. So yes, I'm very excited about Seven Eves by Neil something.
Oh, now you're making me
Okay,
think.
sorry, Anderson or Neil, but it's Seven Eves and it's one word. You can't miss it. It's Seven Eves smushed together. So it looks great. If you guys want to participate in the book club, get your copy of that because we're going to be doing that in August. Give you a good head start.
Neil Stevenson.
But
Stevenson.
see, I want to read Leviathan's Wake before then, which is also an 800-page book. So I've got a lot of reading ahead of me because it's okay. So anyway, I have a book recommendation though, real quick. If you guys like sci-fi and interesting, unique books, I am almost on a trilogy now. But the first book is called The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. Oh, my Lanta. It's so good and unique. You'll never read a book like this ever again. And it's beautiful. So I highly recommend it. It's like this, it's about this colony on this other planet and all the men's thoughts you can like see and hear. But the women's thoughts you can't hear. That's just the basic premise. It's amazing. No. You're such a pain in the butt.
Do you know
what?
No.
It's really good.
That's like a nightmare.
Exactly. It's very interesting, and the men don't like it, and the women don't fare so well in this one particular colony. It's very interesting. It's super cool. So anyway, it's
all right. Maybe.
But if you start it, you're really reading like a, I don't know, 612, like 1,800-page book because each book ends like you have to start the next one immediately. So you're really reading. Anyway, we have a guest.
Wow, great transition there. You're dodging that bullet. I'm picking you back up on that later. But yes, we do have a guest. And I want to give a quick introduction to this guest. Remember how, like last week, I was saying with this guest, you're the individual that I accidentally emailed when trying to email Lindsay, of saying I'm not sure if this is a real person, but it might be a spammer, but it's an interesting point and book that we could look into.
Yeah.
This is that person.
It's me.
Yes. Definitely didn't find me insulting accidentally, and when I realized what I had done, it was definitely oh God, I'm an idiot. Why do people even talk to me? So, yes, we have a guest, wonderful young man, Dylan. And Dylan, I've had a chance to talk with you a bit over the past couple weeks, and I've really appreciated it because you and I are in similar fields in a way. Well, not in a way. We're both in youth ministry. Mm-hmm. And that's how you connected with the 42, but also, you and I swapped some stories, what's going on, life, all of that. So tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you got going.
Yeah. So, Dylan Scott Miller is my full name, because no one can ever find me, because Dylan and Miller, very common names, but that Scott in the middle usually helps people figure out who I am. So I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I've got 2 girls, been married for, the awkward pauses, I try and do the math in my head, almost 7 years. 7 years in August, which is fun. And our girls are 4 and 1, Claire and Charlotte. And we like to say that they're a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of hurricane. They both experience the extremes in life. They don't do anything halfway, which I appreciate about them. And then, so I got my start in youth ministry, and then transitioned out during 2020. And now I do content marketing and content publishing and all kinds of fun stuff.
Now, you emailed me from your work email. You want to say a little bit about what that content marketing is?
Yeah, so DSM StoryForge, which is the DSM is my 3 initials, obviously. So what I do there is content marketing includes, I do blog posts, I do email marketing, I do some SMS marketing for some real estate investors, which is a very interesting field to be in. Really enjoy it. And I like to say I've written in everything from drapes to AI. And then I'm in the process, the exciting process of positioning my company and splitting off, doing a satellite company that will be like DSM Content Forge to do that. And StoryForge is actually going to become like my content publishing company, where I'm working with someone, for example, right now who's wanting to write, do a self-published book, but wants some help, and then they want to publish it through my company, and possibly in talks with someone else who wants to do a board game and kind of launch it and publish it through my business and help them get that started and things like that. So kind of positioning it that way with doing some different content publishing. And then I've written the book, and then I've got some others in the works that I'm getting done. And so that's all real exciting for me, and I'm super nerdy in the publishing world. I think it's so interesting and fascinating.
You published a book?
I self-published a book, ebook now, and I'm in the process of getting everything set up for print and stuff.
Okay, what is this book about? What's it called? How can I get my hands on it?
So I'm glad you brought that up. So it's called Pray, Letting the Lord's Prayer Shape the Rhythms of Your Prayer Life. And so it was basically born out of a message series that I wanted to do in youth ministry and never got to, because I've always had this fascination with the Lord's Prayer. For the longest time, I remember my first introduction to the Lord's Prayer, my grandmother got me this. It was like a little marble base with like a little, like some type of metal boat on it. And on the sail was written the Lord's Prayer in the King James Version, which is kind of what I grew up knowing. And I got that when I was like 6. And I remember I had that for the longest time, and it finally broke one day, and so I don't have it anymore. But that kind of started my fascination with the Lord's Prayer. Then I was doing this message, transitioned out of ministry, and I had all these notes, and I've always been interested in it. So I took it and wrote it, and basically I break down, even getting into a little bit of some of the Greek and stuff of the Lord's Prayer, and kind of how do we take that framework that Jesus gave us and make it real practical. What does that look like to pray? Not just reciting the Lord's Prayer, but take the motifs and themes within that. Right. Use that as a framework for how we kind of model prayer in our daily lives.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so I've got it on. I'll make sure you guys have the links to it if you guys have it and you want to put it in the show notes. Obviously, I would love to just gift the ebook to anyone for the 42. But with the link, it's on dsmstoryforge.com/products, and it's right there, front page, and you can go purchase direct download on PayHip, and you click that link, and then you go and you purchase it like you would, and then I've got a coupon code, which is the 42, and they'll get it for free.
Cool. We have a coupon.
Just my little gift. Yeah. Just my little gift to all the 42 podcast listeners.
Cool.
So I have to admit, you and I talked about this about a week ago, a little over, and I got it, I printed it out, and I've had a busy week and a half. I've got Youth Sunday tomorrow, and I still technically haven't written down the sermon I'm preaching.
Yeah.
I've got the meat of it. I haven't put it on paper yet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there. It's in the stack of to reads.
Yeah.
and I will get to it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited because it looks very good. It looks
Thank you,
interesting,
thank you.
and it's one of those things that when I was talking to my wife about it, she's going, "Well, why haven't you written your books yet?" Go away.
Exactly right.
So
Yeah. Yeah, good
but
question.
no, I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, thank you for doing that and sharing that. You emailing me though from your work email, because we get emails that are like, "Oh, hey, we've listened to the 42," and it's always like bad English and grammar.
Yeah, naturally.
And we want to buy podcast and make you big, but you used good grammar, good English, and you even referenced some things in episodes. So I was like, I think this is a real person, and I think they actually listen.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe the scammers stepped up. No, it's a real person. I'm an idiot.
It was very funny on my end to get the email and be like, hey, I think this person might be legit, but maybe they're a scammer. I was like, I think they meant to email someone else.
Definitely did. It's my personal favorite, because I do these blunders all the time. I have no idea how I have my current job. Because the chair of the interview committee for the youth director position I have, she has a name that's also very much a masculine name that I've only ever encountered as a masculine name. So in the email chain that I have starting the interview process so many years ago, I typed, "Thank you, sir," and got just one line back, "I'm a woman." And I still remember going, "Yeah, nope, that's not a thing I'll ever do." But 8 years on, she's one of my most amazing church volunteer ladies of the church.
Why do I think her name's Robin?
It's not.
Weird. I really thought her name was Robin for some reason. Isn't that weird? I just put that information, Inception weird information in my head that's not even real. So, sorry.
Robin is my boss. She's the pastor of the church.
Well, that's what I
I was
meant.
to say, that name sounded...
Guess that's what I said. That's what I meant.
Yeah. So
Not your boss.
No,
boss.
Pastor Robin. Yeah, she started after I started.
Oh.
This was the interview committee, so this is someone else.
different team.
But no, Pastor
It's
Robin.
like Kyle or
she
something.
started 6 months after. Yeah, Kyle. All right. Anyway. But no, I'm glad you're not a scammer. Glad you're here with us.
I mean, I could be playing the long haul.
Yeah, well, maybe you are. Who knows? But we'll deal with that when we have to. Anyway. One of the big reasons that I wanted to actually have you on, especially as we're talking Star Wars, is because actually it is kind of to assuage? What's that word?
It depends what you mean.
Soothe my guilt.
Assuage?
Soothe my guilt.
Assuage.
Yeah, that one.
I don't know, actually. Carry on.
Lindsay's the word person. When we talk Star Wars, I always feel a little guilty, because it is definitely a guilty pleasure, something I enjoy. And I feel this podcast, we're trying to talk every aspect of life, but when we go Star Wars, I feel like some people are like, eh. You are one of those people who, before listening to this podcast, is like, Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Is that a fair description?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But now you've been going through, you're watching, interacting, reading, and getting into Star Wars. So I'd love to hear what is your opinion, why this is now a thing for you, where you're at, engaging with Lindsay and I, what questions, what geekiness can we draw out?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah.
How guilty are we of your obsession?
Honestly, so it's one of those things, to give some background. My family, my parents were Star Trek nerds, okay? They went to a Star Trek convention before I was born. So, we were a Star Trek family. So, I remember my first memory of Star Wars anything was, I think we went in theaters when I was I don't remember how old I was, whenever it came out, to see Episode 1. Because I remember Jar Jar Binks being my favorite character. Because, I was a child. And then, and then I don't remember.
So many answers.
Exciting stuff. And then from there, I don't think we ever went and saw another Star Wars movie. I didn't see any of them until college. And then someone's like, "You haven't watched Star Wars? You got it?" And I was like, "Okay, fine, whatever." And we binged them all in one day. And it was awful. I remember being like, "This is way too much." And, I was doing homework and, eating and other stuff and hanging out with people. So I really wasn't paying much attention. And so I was like, okay, Star Wars just isn't for me, right? Whatever. And then, but listening to you guys talk on the podcast, I was like, okay, they're getting real deep into the lore of things, and that's what I get obsessed about.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, these characters sound pretty, way more interesting than I thought they were. You know what I mean? And so I was like, you know what? I'll watch the movies and just see what happens on my own, after the kids are in bed, and I just get to enjoy them. And then I ran into, what order do you watch the movies in? And that is kind of the first question I want to ask for you guys. What is the correct viewing order, in your opinion, for the first 6 movies?
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Oh, I don't think I'm the one to answer this question, Rob, but I
know you're not the one to answer this question, which is why I'm saying you go first, because
my answer will
I know
be
I'm going to have an
pathetic.
opinion.
Yeah. I think I would probably watch them how they came out. I think.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a tough question, because if somebody's never seen it before and they watch the first 3, it's sort of visually not as pretty as the other ones, So I don't know, and I think Rob's going to disagree with pretty much no matter what I say. But I don't know. I don't even watch the movies so much. I haven't watched the movies in a long time.
Fair enough.
Okay. So this is I have 2 answers. I'm not going to fight you too much, Lindsay, but if you are a big Star Wars fan or someone who enjoys it, so you've already got an engagement in it,
Right.
You got to go 1 to 9. You got to go in order. If you're new to it, it's 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9.
Just to make it simplified.
I know. But if you're new to it, you got to watch that original trilogy. You got to have what is the storytelling.
Yeah.
That is, why do the prequels matter? Why do the sequels matter? Because if you don't get that cultural moment that is 4, 5, 6, you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
Because if you watch it in chronological order and you're entirely new and being introduced to it, you're like,
what's the gravitas?
Who cares about Jar Jar Binks?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because part
if you're new to it, 4, 5, 6.
Part of the weight of episode 1 is the fact that Anakin is Darth Vader, and he's this cute little boy. But I think if you don't know that, it's like, so why do we care? Mm-hmm. Why is this important? So I think Rob's right. Rob's right!
And that's
I'm
how
gonna,
how I
isolate that out of the recording and just have that on repeat somewhere.
Just that as a clip, an audio clip.
This is why my wife doesn't do podcasting with me, because if she ever says I'm right, she knows I'm just going to isolate that. And, that'll be the ringtone. Rob's right. Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I've known this all along. No, but I would love to say that you do, if you're brand new to it, I'd love to say that, yes, you know what, you watch them in chronological order, but you miss that aspect in just the movies that is Darth Vader being Anakin. Mm-hmm. Which is why you need to have 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
Because you have to have...
Because then there's that moment.
What is the terror of Darth Vader.
That moment.
You've got to have that to then go back and even connect to Anakin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the character doesn't make sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, once you get into it, you got to do 1, 2, Clone Wars, 3, Bad Batch, Solo Story, which I did finally figure out officially that this is after, but we're recording before, which is driving me nuts. But Obi-Wan fits in after Solo, before Rebels.
Okay.
Good to know.
So episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 of of Obi-Wan fit in before Rebels starts.
Oh, yeah.
So, where I'm at right now, I stayed up late, way too late, and watched episode 3. Trying to get to the point this week where I've watched Bad Batch and Solo before Obi-Wan. So I'm trying to get there.
Yes. I should probably watch that this week, too. Revenge of the Sith.
I've actually... So what I've done is 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. But
There you go.
I took a break. So after 2, I watched Clone Wars. Basically everything in between 2 and 3. Watched 3. And now I'm in the process of watching Rebels. And when I finish that, I'm actually going to go back and watch 4, 5, and 6 to then just complete the journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of like the entire kind of like timeline of stuff. Now, obviously, Obi-Wan fitting in there.
But you gotta do, and it makes for a long night or a weird day, but you almost have to do Rogue One rolling right into A New Hope.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do need to watch Rogue One before I roll anything. Because that's my other thing. I haven't watched any of the new stuff. I've only existed in the universe of what has already been out. So I'm kind of excited. I'm getting more excited to do the new stuff.
Solo, you can get away with like not watching and be okay. But Rogue One, you definitely have to watch that and roll right into watching A New Hope, especially now that you're getting it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a lot of story here because Rogue One draws and plays on all of the emotion that you've started feeling. And you finish that movie, and I mean, I'm talking about it, and I got goosebumps, but you finish it.
Yeah.
And the way they finish that movie, the way they bring you in through the storytelling, through what's happening, you're right there at the beginning of A New Hope going, what happened? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And when we went, because we went as a family, I like to try and see the movies in theaters when possible.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm really thankful for, because I got to see episode 9 in theaters, and then, like, the world shut down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I miss movie theaters. I really do. Anyway. Where was I going with... Oh. So, yeah, the storytelling of that, though, it draws you right into the beginning of A New Hope, and you're there. You're, like, emotionally there in the story.
Mm-hmm.
You get why Vader walking onto the Tantive 4 is terrifying, even more so because of what just happened. You get why there's this desperate flight that we only get a hint at in the original telling. It's yeah. All right, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Mm.
So I picked on Lindsay a little bit about this last week with, you know, being on a podcast with a storyteller. And this is something that I kind of want to even get your perspective on, because I feel like ministry and youth ministry, one of the biggest things that we are in a lot of ways is storytellers. Mm-hmm. Not that scripture is a story, hold on, Lindsay
with the finger.
Yeah. So you can see, and one of these days we're actually going to do like a live stream podcast eventually if I can convince her to it. But you see the facial expressions and why there are these weird conversational moments that you don't get. Because Lindsay's like, or I'm over here doing, you know, we get weird. But I feel like the level of storytelling that is there to connect in with, the level of ministry storytelling that we deal with, that it hits this sweet spot for me of culture and ministry, and the number of times that you can tie ministry into the story, and you know, vice versa. I'm bringing it up because you do storytelling in advertising professionally. So having engaged with that side of it, where are you at? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they call it the Skywalker Saga, right? It's not, there's a lot of characters, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, this isn't a story, you know, and Rob, you and I have talked a little bit about, my fascination is with the specific transition of Anakin to Vader, because Vader even says, no, I killed Anakin, he's gone, he's dead. You know what I mean? Like, that pivotal moment, you know what I mean, is fascinating to me. And this entire Skywalker saga, you know what I mean, all this is leading to that specific moment. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's so much, like, I mean, even just talking about, you know what I mean, I feel like I'm getting ready to dive into a sermon here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, it overlaps so much with some of that and the storytelling, and, you know, everyone that interacts with these, you know, I think they love the characters, you know, different things like that of, you know, Anakin and Obi-Wan, of course, and even Qui-Gon and all these different things. But at the same time, the story isn't about them. It never was. You know what I mean? It's about this other central character. And another reason why I think, you know, you kind of have to watch 4, 5, and 6 first is because you're getting introduced to this character that you don't even know exists yet. You know what I mean? Like, you're being introduced to Vader before you realize everything about him, and then it's like, whoa!
Yeah.
You're reeling once you go back, you know?
Yep.
And so from a storytelling perspective, it's just incredibly well done. The bad guy, right, for all intents and purposes, ends up being what will be the hero, maybe not the good guy, but the hero of the entire saga. You know?
Yes.
Everything comes back to Anakin turning into Darth Vader in that moment. In all the different ways we can see ourselves, and in all the different characters. Any good book, any good story, movie, whatever, has that. We try and connect with the characters, right? And there's so many good ones and bad ones. Even just, you know, so the Bad Batch, for example, I really, really, really liked, because I loved Crosshair. You know what I mean? And he's the bad guy, but then you find out, you know, spoilers for anyone, but then you find out that he was making his own decisions the whole time, and he's like, "This is who I am," and you're like, "What?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah, yeah."
You know what I mean? It's just, and so there's so many good characters that you can connect with and relate to, and there's so much to dive in there, Rob. But yeah, it's really well done. You know, people have their thoughts and opinions. I had my thoughts and opinions, but from a storytelling perspective,
it's gold.
It is incredibly well done.
Yes,
it's incredibly well done.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I love in how well George Lucas put the story together is that, you know, as you're saying, you start getting invested in what is the Skywalker saga, what is Darth Vader. You know, last week I'm trying to talk Obi-Wan, who is my character, and Lindsay's like, no, all I want is Vader.
Yeah.
It's not Vader, it's Obi-Wan. And I get it, we see Vader, but it's Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan is Darth Vader's foil.
So, but the bit that I love is when you sit with it and you look at it, the original Star Wars, that original trilogy, Darth Vader has like a total of 30 minutes of screen time between 3 movies, and he is such a character and such a well-written character that it spawned the prequels. It spawned a whole culture. It spawned a whole geekdom just in who is Vader. And, you know, you have the cultural moment that we all missed because we're all under whatever it would be, like 45 or... No, it's a little bit older than that of, you know, oh no, Vader is actually Luke's father. This pivotal writing scene that was even kept secret and we understand culturally. And,
yeah.
Which again, I look at and I go, the writing is just, it's always phenomenal because they draw you in. And even if you hated the prequel trilogy, there's some investment because you want to know.
How?
Vader, Anakin. Yeah. You want to know. When the sequel trilogy came out, I was a hater for episode 1. It's not bad, but it's not my favorite. Episode 2 was getting better, but can we cut the romance? But now I understand, you know, each of these things is building to that. And by episode 3, you're there.
Yeah.
I don't know. The storytelling is phenomenal to me. And that's one of the biggest things that I enjoy about Star Wars is they are trying to tell good stories. Which, to Lindsay's chagrin, which is also part of the reason why I'm not a, hater for 7, 8, 9. Because it's, I think they're going to recover them somehow.
I don't get it. Why am I a hater? I think you're...
You're not a hater, but you want me to actually be, like, negative and critical to something.
No, I don't. It's never what I said. I just think you're annoying because you won't even, like, think about it. You're just like, no, it's not my story. I can't comment.
It's not my story. They're gonna recover
See,
it.
that's silly. That's silly. That's like,
See?
that's what
There it
people
is.
do with Star Wars. Like Shakespeare. There's a Okay, first off, this is what I've been having in my head to say. There's a reason that they have these books translated into Shakespearean and written as plays. Because they are that frickin' good. Because they are Shakespearean in their gravitas and their story ability. Okay. That having been said, do we criticize Shakespeare plays? Yes, we do. And that's okay, even though it's Shakespeare. We say, well,
But are we criticizing...
look at how this director did this, or this interpretation of that, or whatever. So, yeah, your approach about, like, well, I don't know, can't talk about that because it's not my story, and if I didn't create it myself, I have no right to comment and criticize. You know, if I didn't bake it myself, I'm just gonna eat it.
I have some notes for you on your impressions of me.
Yeah, well, it's not like I thought about that,
right,
you know?
Yeah, it's not like that's been simmering under the surface for a while. With Star Wars, yes, you know what? It's not my story, but I trust, like Jon Favreau and David Filoni. Wow, how did I forget David Filoni for a moment? I trust what they're doing with everything that's precursor to 7-8-9 right now. You know, Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, Ahsoka that's coming out. I trust that they're going to, in some way, kind of draw 7-8-9 and build it. Because, like, look at the prequel trilogy. You've got 1, 2, and 3, but they make 1, 2, and 3 better by adding Clone Wars in between 2 and 3. They flesh out the characters that are Anakin better by Clone Wars. So I trust that what they're doing is they're going to eventually flesh out 7-8-9 better somehow, some way.
It's just a weird comment.
That's where
to
I'm
say,
at.
I trust them. You can enjoy what they do without trusting them. Like, I don't trust anybody.
I lost you guys.
We lost you, too, so we lost you. We'll just fill in the gaps in editing, I guess.
Internet's being wonky. That's me. Dylan, you still there?
Anyway.
I'm still here. Yep.
I didn't mean to hijack the conversation.
And just, you know, my part... Sure you didn't. All right, just to verify, everybody's still recording as well?
Yeah.
Double check. Yes.
Nobody's pulled a Rob from 2 weeks ago?
No.
Yeah.
Accidentally stopped recording. Accidentally pushed the red
I
button.
accidentally stopped recording you on that whole Rob impersonation. Fighting words.
You did? How do you do that?
Hello, Internet. Come back.
There goes
No,
Rob.
you're... Oh, whatever. I'm editing this week anyway, so maybe I'll put you in chipmunk filter. How about that?
I'm sure you're saying wonderfully brilliant things.
Yeah. I'm staring at my screen as it's being wonky. All right. Are we stable?
Yes, I think so.
I
You're
can hear
blinking.
you guys. Sorry.
You're blinking. That's the good news.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
That's
that
how
works.
I tell
All
when
right.
people are frozen is when they stop blinking.
They're either doing a
I'll
Hannibal
just keep
Lecter
blinking.
impression or something's wrong.
See, he's not blinking anymore.
And he's too smiley for Hannibal Lecter. So.
Thanks. I think. Maybe.
Maybe, would it help if I left? Because I don't mind leaving.
No, it's my internet. I'm being wonky. So, all right. I do have another question for you, Dylan. So far, with where you're at in interacting with Star Wars, is there like a favorite moment, favorite story, favorite... what's a standout for you?
Yeah, so like I said, everything in my mind leads to that pivotal moment of Anakin becoming Vader. But, so that whole... That moment of when, one, Anakin is burned up, but then when Palpatine is rebuilding him, he says, where's Padme? And he's like, you killed her. You know what I mean? That moment is, like, to me, like, probably... I'm still not convinced that that's the moment, but that's probably the best on-screen we'll get to seeing that moment.
To the actual crushing of Anakin.
Yes. Yes. You know what I mean? But other than that, I was obsessed with the Clone Wars when I started watching it. So, like, season 1, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I was like, this Ahsoka character, I'm not a big fan.
I was the same way. I felt the same way.
And, man, let me tell you, I ate my own words with a spoon by the end of it. But I think it was season 5.
Yes.
That last couple of episodes.
Yes.
When Ahsoka's on trial and she's just about to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Anakin swoops in and saves her, and, we want to welcome you back to the, she got kicked out of the Jedi Order, and he's trying to welcome her back.
Yeah.
And she says no. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because to me, that is one of, Anakin's whole thing of how he got to be where he was in episode 3 was all the loss he's had in his life. You know what I mean? And Ahsoka's his first and only Padawan,
Yeah.
And to have her choose to walk away from him like that, I don't think they had to show it very much in the show, but you could just tell.
He failed her.
Yeah, how crucial that moment was to him.
Yep.
And then you see it even more in Rebels, that Ahsoka even realizes, because she has this vision when they're in one of the Jedi temples of Vader, and in Anakin's voice, but it's Vader behind her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this vision, and saying, you left me, you know what I mean? And she's even realizing, like, I might have been, one of the nails in the coffin.
Yeah.
To seal his fate,
Yeah.
So that storyline to me, especially when you also fill that in with that scene from Rebels,
yeah.
It's so good.
It's interesting that Anakin / Darth Vader, who knows how long this transition took. I kind of think it was transitional, because in the comics, he has to build his own lightsaber. And that's a huge deal for him. And that, to me, I think that's when he becomes truly Darth Vader and rejects completely Anakin. Except for maybe that little tiny speck. But aside, if you don't take into consideration the comics and just think about the show, Clone Wars in particular, it's fascinating that Anakin went after Ahsoka at all. Because, and I think that was Anakin. Is he hunting her? Is he finding her? And then he finds her lightsabers, and we won't know. We don't know why he was there exactly, So that's interesting to think about, is how much Anakin was still in there at that point, and what would he have done if he found her? Would they have fought?
Yeah, well, because then it's what? Rebel is, I'm trying to remember the time frame. Is it 15 years jumped forward from everything?
Yeah, ish, because Leah's grown in Rebels.
Yeah.
She's like 18 or 19-ish.
Well, I think I remember reading somewhere how many years had passed, and I can't remember what it was now. But, so he's had all that time to really just become and embody Lord Vader, And so I think, and so even when he senses Ahsoka in that scene in Rebels, and he says, what do you say? The Padawan survives, or something like that, or the Padawan lives, or my apprentice lives, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that moment, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wonder, in his head, you know what I mean? Like, does that have any significance to him? Because then he has nothing, you know what I mean? And then when they're in the Sith temple, and Vader's mask is cracked, and you see part of his face.
The symbolism!
Oh, dude, it's so good. And then,
Yeah.
and then she says, I won't leave you this time. And he says, then you will die. You know, like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Brutal. And even in Ahsoka's face, I think she expected something more, you know?
Yeah.
Of like, I thought I meant more to him or whatever. And I think that's why when you get to 4, 5, and 6, it's the revelation that he did have a son. And he survived.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that his son wants him, despite everything.
Yeah.
That is what brings him back enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and it's Padme's death and the death of his children that are, I mean, that takes him like 70% of the way there. Don't you think? Like 80% of the way there. And the thought that maybe there's redemption. Just that little speck, and you can see it in the way Darth Vader looks at Palpatine in the movies. Like, I don't know, what can you really read into a mask? And like, it's not like, it's just this pause, the pause before he says, yes, my master, or whatever. It's like, something's there, but maybe it's hindsight 2020 type thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, and then I got real into the audiobooks.
Yes.
And so I listened to, and then I found out that, because I didn't know this, because I'm just learning all this, I didn't know that there's like a whole thing that they've called them legends, whatever, and so those are non-canonical, and I was like, well, why did I just waste my time reading? They were very good books, though. But one of them that I read was Lords of the Sith, and it's where Palpatine...
That is canon.
That one is canon, yes, but a lot of the others I read, I ended up reading, ended up being legends, and I didn't know. But Lords of the Sith, you know, that whole relationship between Palpatine and Vader shows a lot too. I mean, there's a whole thing of, you know, and then I think in the comics they even revealed that Palpatine had a huge hand in Anakin, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, literally being groomed from birth, you know?
Yeah.
And that relationship, and because in Lords of the Sith, it's like he basically had opportunities to betray Palpatine, and Palpatine gave him opportunities to betray him.
Huh.
And I've always that's another set of characters I'm fascinated by. Like, why does Vader cling so closely to Palpatine? You know what I mean? Like, even in that book, he even has thoughts of like, oh, I could totally do this. You know what I mean? He's like, I could totally do this right now. But he rejects it. He's like, no way. I
think it's because he thinks it's what he deserves. Partially.
See, and that's kind of a little bit of what I was thinking reading that book, because he was so loyalty among the Sith, you know, one thing is just not there.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. That's the whole master-apprentice relationship, is
to kill
the apprentice
your master.
He's going to kill the master. Yeah. That's the whole point of it. And then when he has these opportunities and he still refuses, and that, you know, that book is placed, if I'm understanding things right, even I think from what I remember reading is it was placed somewhere in the movies, not in the show, so even a little bit farther into everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That is an interesting point, because I can't remember if it was Darth Plagueis or one of the other ones, but I've read a lot of the books about the Siths, even though they're legend, because I think they're just fascinating. Plus, I think, by the way, just as an aside, I think they're going to cherry pick things from legends and put them and make them canon, like they did with Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray. That's canon for some reason. Not really sure why. Yeah. It's just like a random legend book. But my point was, Darth Plagueis, his apprentice is like Tenebros or something weird. And Tenebros's criticism of Plagueis, I can't remember his name. It begins with a T. His criticism of Plagueis is that Plagueis is taking forever to kill him. Like, it's been decades, and Plagueis' master is like, maybe he's not cut out for this because he's supposed to try to kill me. That's the whole point. And he takes forever, and it finally happens kind of by accident. Spoilers.
Yeah.
So,
I read that one.
But it's interesting, the length of Darth Vader and Palpatine's relationship is kind of getting along there.
Yeah.
And it's either that Palpatine is sort of the end of the Sith dynasty, like there is no more, and he doesn't intend to die. Or something. Like maybe he's changing things so it's no longer that way.
Yeah.
What do you
wasn't
think?
In Plagueis, in Plagueis, didn't he say specifically like that was Palpatine said that was Plagueis' whole problem, is because he thought we were going to be the last two Sith. And Palpatine was like, you're an idiot. The rule of two will always exist. You know what I mean? Like, who do you think that you can rise above it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it would be an interesting thing, though, if that was where Palpatine was coming from, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Rob?
Okay, so you haven't... Sorry, my internet finally caught up. I've been following the conversation. You kind of get that answer in 7, 8, 9, though. Especially in 9. So you haven't watched that yet.
I haven't watched it,
not to
so
give
that's
too
fine,
much away. Yeah, but you start getting that answer out of 7, 8, and 9. You got to get through 7 and 8. But in 9, it's, I wonder what's going on. Which, again, is where I'm expecting that they're going to fill in some of those gaps.
Like, when did that plan... When was that initiated? When he realized Darth Vader wasn't gonna take over? When he realized he wasn't worthy or something? You know?
Yeah, like how that plays out, how that rule of two plays out. Even they introduce that philosophy of, I am all the Sith and I am all the Jedi, and which is weird because how does that fit? How does that work? So I think we're going to get those answers out of like the extended medias, like the books, but also out of the shows. As we're following the Mandalorian, who that just finished with the new cloning facilities that they showed at the end of season 2. Not trying to give too much away. There's nothing there that you're like, oh, that gives
fine.
answers.
I'm totally fine with spoilers. I mean, I didn't jump into Star Wars until now. So like,
well, I know, but like once you get past 4, 5, and 6 again, and you go into the Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
Yep.
Again, this is another like level of mind melting, and I'm not trying to give anything away. But at the end of season 2, it's not a giveaway, but you're like, more questions.
Yeah,
I want answers.
Yeah,
because there's a cloning facility. So what's going on? How does this fit in?
Yeah. Well, I think that's what they did with the other movies, right? Is these shows, Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch, they all... I mean, if those didn't exist, I don't think the movies would be as compelling. You know what I mean? It really, they fill in the gaps and flesh out the characters so well. Like, I feel like it's almost a hard transition to see Anakin in episode 2 and 3. Like, because there's just like, it's a weird transition. Almost. You're like, he went like way more extreme in episode 3. You're like, what happened in between? You know what I mean? And then you watch Clone Wars and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Agreed.
Which is where Clone Wars is huge, because it gives that transition. Because if you just have the movies, you're like, Anakin went from
so
spoiled and whiny to spoiled, whiny, and angry. And, Hayden Christensen didn't have a lot of time to work with in fleshing out that character, which is why Clone Wars helped with that.
Yeah.
Hayden did great with it, with the time he was given, but we need that extra bit to get from A to B.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, and even to their credit, too, like, I found this out recently. I read an article that for episode 2, I don't know if you guys knew this, or maybe I'm totally wrong, too, but episode 2 apparently had an issue with the voice recordings, like the audio quality, so they had to actually go back and voice over for, like, the entirety of the movie.
That's awful.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Well, and that's the thing, too, is like, because I always felt like everything was kind of off in episode 2, and now I'm like, oh, they actually did a really good job considering they had to go back and do everything a second time just for the voices, basically, and not having that emotion in the moment in the scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that would be rough. And they did pretty good with even getting the lip sync correct on that. Because that's... Yeah.
Poor editors.
Yeah.
That must have been terrible.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So, well, all right. So, you said you're finishing Rebels, right?
Yep. So, I am just starting season 3, and the season 2 ending got me.
All right. I kind of have to ask, because it's culturally there, and to a big degree inescapable. But what are your thoughts and interactions looking ahead as you go past 4, 5, and 6, and into things like The Mandalorian, into Book of Boba Fett, into 7, 8, 9. Like, you've had to have heard some whispers more than me in the cloning facility reveal at the end. What are your thoughts?
100%. So I think when I heard about Mandalorian and Boba Fett, obviously, before I started even watching all this stuff. Like I said, I've really only been on the Star Wars, like, paying attention to a journey, like, 2 months. You know what I mean? Like, not very long at all.
Really? You're doing really good.
Thank you. I have this thing where I really deep dive onto things and become ultra fascinated with them. And so this just happens to be the thing right now. But all things considered, I've heard enough, but I think I was not at all I was like, what do I give a crap about Boba Fett for? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, I vaguely remember the costume, you know what I mean? And then when I watched the movies even, I was like, okay, he's in there for like, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not all that long, you know what I mean? But then in Clone Wars, when you meet Boba, it's almost that moment of like Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, and seeing him as a kid again and being like, oh man, okay. And then you follow him. And was he in the Bad Batch too? I can't remember.
Maybe briefly.
I don't think so.
The Bad Batch?
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, was he in there? I thought he had an episode. Maybe not, though. Maybe just thinking Clone Wars. Because he was in there for a couple episodes.
Yeah.
And so starting to see that character. Now, I'm very interested in hearing about Boba Fett. And I've heard, a couple different things. And obviously, I've heard maybe there's a crossover between Mandalorian and Boba Fett. Am I on track? Okay, so I have heard that. Mandalorian, I haven't heard a lot about, other than, of course, I work at a Lifetime Fitness, a gym, and they have a child care center inside, so you can drop your kids off while you work out. And, the number of kids that come in with Baby Yoda shirts on is insane. So, obviously, I've been introduced to Baby Yoda, and his real name is Grogu, right?
Yep.
Is that right? Okay. But that's really about as much as I know. And I've not heard, honestly and truly, I've not really heard anything about 7, 8, and 9. So when I was in youth ministry, I had 2 kids that were real into Star Wars, but I wasn't. And so they would want to talk to me about 7, 8, and 9 because that was like what they were growing up with. You know what I mean? But at the time I was just like, I know nothing about Star Wars. You know what I mean? So I don't know much about, I've seen a video of, Kylo Ren's betrayal scene, and that's about it, honestly. So I'm very excited. I'm super excited.
I liked them. I liked them a lot. I thought they were really fun. They're good, and I like Daisy Ridley immensely. I think she's fantastic.
Oh yeah, she's good. So I remember this because kind of again that cultural moment to a degree because we were watching The Mandalorian as a family, and I remember that first episode of The Mandalorian, and you've already met the character, but I had no idea what was about to happen. It was entirely new, and they reveal Baby Yoda, and I'm sitting there with my kids, and my jaw hits the floor. My kids are looking at me, I'm looking at them, and we're all like, "What just happened? Why?" It was a huge moment for me, and my daughter who entertains my Star Wars love. It was a character that she jumped in and resonated with and loved. And, my son and I love the story that introduces Baby Yoda because you're like, oh, wow, oh, haha. Shooting, death, and destruction. Awesome. So I guess that's part of what I even love with Star Wars. Is it doesn't matter if you get hooked in with Darth Vader. You've got like Lindsay, who loves Ahsoka and lights up when we talk about Ahsoka, and I ignore her. Darth Vader, who brings everyone in.
I love Ahsoka so much right now.
Look, I like Ahsoka. She's a great and amazing character, but come on, space. For me, it's the original Space Wizard, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
It's like it's exclusive. It's like it's mutually exclusive, and you can't like more than one character at a time or something. I'm not really understanding that. It's not like a marriage.
There's only one good character. No.
Shots fired. Everyone watching.
So when I was,
you just don't want to be unfaithful to Obi-Wan.
I don't. When I was in youth group, and as a student. My youth director called me a serial monogamist, okay? So just because I'm that same way with my storyline character means nothing.
That's so funny.
I do love Ahsoka. I do love Grogu and Mando and Boba Fett, but like Obi-Wan was that original space wizard who brought me into it. And yes, go ahead, Lindsay.
I just had a revelation about why Ahsoka is so much better than Padme, because Padme never has a character arc. She is just Padme. Pure, lovely, sometimes brave, sometimes oddly fainting because, I don't know, but Padme. Ahsoka has a very strong, very defined, beautiful character arc. She has flaws. Padme has no flaws. She's not a real person. I'm sorry, I was just thinking of why are they different? Why do I like Ahsoka more? And that's why. Obi-Wan has a character arc. He definitely changes, but not as much as Ahsoka.
I liked Obi-Wan a lot more when I realized with, what's her name? Satine?
Yeah.
Yes, when I realized...
Oh.
Me too.
Yeah, that he had... You know what I mean?
Like he had feelings.
Oh my gosh. So my biggest thing with Obi-Wan all the way through until Clone Wars is, honestly, Rob, don't hate me, I did not like him. I was like, I could take Obi-Wan and just kick him right on out of the series and be perfectly happy. You know what I mean? But in Clone Wars...
Yeah.
One, I think he developed such a cool relationship with Anakin throughout that. I mean, it was very obvious by the end of Clone Wars that he knew Anakin and Padme were together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And more than just, like, having fleeting feelings. Like, he knew they were together. You know what I mean? Like, there's a scene where he's trying to sneak away and talk to Padme, and I can't remember which clone was outside.
Did you say hi to Padme for me?
Yeah, he says, would you say hi to Padme for me? At least say hi to Padme for me. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, he knows.
Yeah.
He knows. And I respect him so much for not saying anything about it. You know what I mean? But seeing his relationship with Satine, I feel like fleshed out his character so much.
Yeah.
Because he made that very difficult, conscious decision. I'm going to stay with the Jedi Order. And that corrected everything for him, you know?
But, and this is actually where I love that story arc, where, you know, you have the rebellion that rises up, and Darth Maul's taking control, and it's the one where that all plays out. You see Obi-Wan go alone. You never see him go alone on almost anything.
Yep.
He goes alone. There's no Jedi Order. There's no Anakin. It's just him.
Yep.
And that whole arc of things.
That's one of my favorite Obi-Wan episodes, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, that's part of the reason I love Obi-Wan, because they bring this deep mystery to him. Whether, you know, you have Alec Guinness, who is a classically trained Shakespearean artist, who only has a short window of time to bring this depth and mystery to him, to get you hooked in, to introduce the Force, to introduce lightsabers, to introduce the struggle that is good and evil, and then to die.
Right.
And get you to go, wow, there's something bigger. I want more.
And then you get more.
And it's only because of that I think we have characters like Ahsoka, that we have characters like the whole Satine story arc in Clone Wars that's of value. Because you have Obi-Wan, who is bringing in that classic light and dark and hooks you into, I want more. Which is why I love Obi-Wan. But Ahsoka is great. I'm looking forward to the Ahsoka TV show. I'm looking forward to that. Part of the reason I don't like Ahsoka right now is because she is the flippin' hold-up to answers about Thrawn and Ezra.
Oh, yeah. She's the gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper.
Yeah.
I don't like a gatekeeper to my stories. I want answers. You have not given me answers. You were in 2 different episode shows of things, and all you did was look awesome and do awesome and not give answers. So I'm mad at Ahsoka.
I think Rob needs a minute.
I love Ahsoka. I'm just... Is my internet going to stop working again? Yeah.
So I want
answers to Thrawn and Ezra.
I just found out about the Ahsoka TV show yesterday, by the way. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I'm still I'm missing all this stuff. I'm still trying to catch up, you know. But I was like, there's going to be an Ahsoka TV show? So I'm excited for that.
So if it's of any help... Oh, go ahead,
Well,
Lindsay.
I needed I don't know if I don't know how else they would do it. Because I guess she looks like Ahsoka, but I just like the cartoon Ahsoka so much better.
Yeah.
The transition is a little...
Some of these live-action transitions from animated characters first have been not my favorite. Some have been done well. Like, I saw a picture of Cad Bane, and I was, like, very impressed. The Grand Inquisitor, I'm thoroughly, deeply unimpressed with.
Yeah, same.
The picture I saw of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, I was like, it feels like it's almost there. Like, I can't tell what. Sorry, my child's screaming in the background.
That's okay.
Children, you know? But I don't know what's exactly missing from the, you know what I mean? But it's just, yeah. It's almost like that uncanny valley where it's just like, it's so close, and now I just don't like it.
I think part of it is we have so much time absent. So much time that unaccounted timeline for Ahsoka. And so she doesn't feel like Ahsoka because she's not really Ahsoka anymore. She's somebody else. So I think the struggle of the show will be connecting the Ahsoka we know and catching us up to why she looks and acts the way she does, because she doesn't act like Ahsoka. She doesn't look like Ahsoka. I mean, in her face, in her body language, she's not soft like Ahsoka was soft. I don't know how to explain that. I don't mean to be weird, but like there's something different, and I think that's going to be the thing, is we need to catch up. Why is Ahsoka the way she is? What's happened to her, you know?
Yeah.
So, all right. Contrary opinion, I actually love...
Rosario Dawson.
Get the name wrong. Rosario, thank you. I love her portrayal of Ahsoka in the live actions. The headpiece isn't quite right yet. I've seen that, and it's, we're getting close on that. They've gotten better with that from Book of Boba Fett, but I really love her portrayal of it because it feels like it's an older, wiser Ahsoka.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And the only thing that I will say is problematic is, you have the Ahsoka from Clone Wars who is extremely gymnastic, and we haven't seen that. It feels like she's a slower, sleepier Ahsoka.
Yeah.
But I think they're bringing on the wisdom of who she is against the gymnastic of who she is.
Yeah, I get that. And she's so feisty and funny and sparky. She's like, she's such a, I don't know, spitfire, I guess, for lack of a better expression. But, I mean, she just seems very sedate. And I get it. Trying to, because when they put her in a scene with Luke Skywalker, she has to have a certain amount of gravitas, because Luke has a lot of gravitas. He's like Luke Skywalker. So you can't have her and him together and she be all goofy or not goofy. Goofy's not the right word, but that she has a sense of humor, you know? Rosario does not.
That's a bit of a big spoiler, and he hasn't watched that yet.
That's okay. I'm here for it.
I am so sorry.
That's all right. I'm here for it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm trying not to give those things away, because when you do meet Ahsoka in The Mandalorian and in Book of Boba Fett.
That's okay. Now I'm excited.
And, I mean, the first time you see her in Mandalorian, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Because they do reveal her in, that classic Star Wars-y kind of way, and you're like, this is... it. Have you watched the movie Aliens?
Oh, yeah. I've got an alien graphic novel right behind me.
There you go. So... You know how that plays out, where it's, you're fighting against this unseen force, and the Marines are just disappearing. Whoop, there goes one. Whoop, there goes one. And that's how they introduce Ahsoka.
Oh, that's so cool.
You see,
in
her
live
two
action,
lightsabers.
You're watching the scene.
The white ones?
You don't even get that. You're
Yes,
watching,
you do.
and you're like, oh, jeez, that guy just died.
You see the lightsabers.
Not until the middle. The guys start disappearing. At least this is how it plays out in my head, in my memory.
No, because they're watching from the wall.
You see
the guards are watching from that wall.
No. Yeah, they are. But you see it from the perspective of the guys in the field first.
Huh.
It plays out like a classic horror movie.
I'll have to go back.
Except you're rooting for the alien this time, and you're like, yes. I know who that is. I think.
See?
And then they reveal the lightsabers, and you're like, yeah.
I love it.
So I do love Ahsoka. She is a magnificent character, but she's the gatekeeper to another character that I have a lot of love for, and I want answers to.
Yeah.
I have a theory. I want to see what you guys think real quick. So,
Go for it.
Ahsoka, obviously, is Anakin's Padawan. They show a lot of, like, they're on the same kind of track, you know what I mean? Thinking about things and processing things, you know what I mean? And then, you know, you jump forward from Clone Wars to Rebels. Something that I've always wondered, and I think you guys have discussed it on the show before, why is Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi's final battle, like, so
lame.
boring?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think... Sorry, screaming over here. They're getting a bath. That's
okay.
why. That's why the kids are screaming. It's bath time. They're having fun. And probably being crazy. But then in Rebels, I think you can see... so Anakin was always flipping. You know what I mean? Like, he was always doing crazy things. He was jumping around, just moving, you know, all kinds of crazy.
Yeah.
First time he's introduced in Rebels, right? And he's going up against Kanan. And something that I kind of picked up on right away is it was much more that Vader that you see in 4, 5, and 6.
Oh.
Because he's just staying in his ground. You know what I mean? And Kanan's like throwing himself at him, and then Ezra's trying to help out. You know what I mean? And Vader's just there. And then you see him at the Sith Temple, right? That scene I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And Ahsoka flipping around, jumping over him, and Vader standing his ground. You know what I mean? And so to hear Ahsoka much more that way of just like standing her ground and not being as like so much movement, you know what I mean? Is this theory's been cooking in my brain, right? Is I think that they're really putting Vader and Ahsoka, because they've made Ahsoka a much bigger character. You know what I mean? Like, she's gaining so much traction, because I didn't even know she was going to be in Rebels. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, and now she's like kind of a big character in Rebels, and you're like, okay, so they're really still tracking on with her. You know what I mean? And now to hear that she's in some of these other ones, my theory feels a little bit more validated of they're really positioning these two, you know, to kind of be complementary to each other in a lot of ways. And so I wonder if that's what happens. You know what I mean? Like, you rely less on the trickiness and the jumping around and things like that, and so you can...
More on the Force?
Yeah, they're relying more on just, like, being comfortable in who they are, where they are, and being able to use the Force. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a natural progression.
Not so much like puppies, you know, like how puppies are like at 2, they're like bouncing all around and running around the house, but now they're like mature, much more grounded.
Well, and even think of, like, in Lords of the Sith, in the book, right, he talks several times about how when Vader really needed to perform, he would, you know, focus on his rage and his anger and things like that, and he would sink deeply into the Force. That phrase was, like, 12 times in that book, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He sank deeply into the Force or whatever. And I think that's kind of it, you know what I mean? Like, that
heaviness,
anchoredness, you know what I mean? Like, I no longer need to be the guy who jumps and flips around and does all these crazy things. I need 3. Give me 3 strokes of my lightsaber and you're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That, you know, that much more confidence and reliance on the Force and becoming really one more and more with the Force. So maybe Ahsoka's getting to that point as well.
That's
I can't speak for it, but I'm wondering.
See, I would almost blame his lack of gymnastics with the amount of fancy word for prosthetics. You know, his not having legs and arms and all that stuff, and how what does that machine feel like on his body, and how does he control it? But also, why can't he use the Force to use it? But so there's no reason.
In Lords of the Sith, I think they address it, because I remember them saying he was talking about Vader was using the Force, and the men were like, he was running, like, you know, faster than any, you know what I mean? Like, that's not holding him back. You know what I mean? Like, I think it is when he sinks deeply into the Force, he can do these things. He just doesn't need to anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
so, no, but I actually think you're onto something, because even when you play out and you get into the sequel trilogy, think about Episode 8, Kylo Ren, and that last battle in Episode 8. Trying not to give things away. who Kylo is fighting isn't jumping around, isn't fighting hard and heavy.
Yeah.
They're fighting like a tank. Kylo is the one that's being quick. Kylo's the one that's putting more energy into raw. And that seems to be the arc that they accept for, and there's one exception to this, but it might fit into the middle of the story, where it's that final battle with Obi-Wan and Anakin in Episode 3.
Well,
it's a lot of jumping.
A lot
of saber flashing.
It is, but because of where they're fighting. Think of Obi-Wan in that, and he's more often than not the one standing his ground, and Anakin's the one just going crazy. You know what I mean?
Partially true, because they do start in the building on Mustafar, and there's no like massive jumping and flailing, but there's a lot of lightsaber, not just single strokes, not just strategic, but there's a passion to that.
Right. Exactly. That's it. Is that you think about the amount of pathos in that fight? They weren't. I mean, through the roof. They are not sunk in the Force. They are. I mean, except for like the jumps. The jumps are crazy, and maybe the speed of the fight is Forcey, but it's a lot of just
raw passion. I mean, Obi-Wan says it best. You were a brother.
Yes.
You know? You're my brother.
But no, you might be onto something with that though, where there's a
I mean, my one thing that I would say that maybe contradicts my theory a little bit is if you remember in Clone Wars when Sidious comes for Maul and Savage, because he's coming in hard and fast at these two, and they quickly realize they are outmatched and outclassed in every possible way. But even then, he's really only, I don't know.
He fights with a class, though.
Yeah.
Because he is one of the most interesting little side stories of Star Wars in its way, because he's a count, he's aristocratic, he's a Jedi, and a Sith Lord. So when I see him in his fights, I always put them in a different category, because it feels like the fight that he's supposed to have is something that is classic.
Aristocratic, and like not even something he even learned in the temple, but something he acquired at Sereno, you know?
Right. And that's, even in that fight with Asajj and, I can't remember.
Ventress?
Yeah. But even that fight, I mean, you see there's a refinement in his movements, and he's energetic and quicker than you expect from Dooku, but I don't know. It's refined. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
It feels very...
So it's interesting. That's my running theory.
Bringing it full circle for you, it feels very French, Lindsay.
And it doesn't mean it's a hard and fast rule. I think I agree with you, but I don't think it's like applied strictly. Because then look at Yoda. Yoda does a lot of spraying around, but that's because he's so tiny, you know?
Well, and part of me thinks in the Clone Wars they expressed that, though, is he had a lot of discord in his, in deep down about the Clone Wars specifically, because that's kind of how they ended, the original ending of the Clone Wars with Season 6 being the end.
Yeah.
That they wrapped up with him really becoming, figuring out how to be a Force ghost and whatever, but really coming into more of a centered of, like, who he needs to be in the Force.
But the thing you see with Yoda, though, again, Episode 3, is... Well, Episode 2 and Episode 3, the lightsaber is the last thing he goes to draw on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's always trying to use the Force and not be movable.
Mm-hmm.
But he always reverts back to that lightsaber, so he's always going back to that.
Mm-hmm.
And even the fight between Palpatine and Yoda at the end of Episode 3 is slower.
Yeah, it is.
There's still the acrobatic side to it, but it's a slower kind of... Yeah, it's a little more tankish. And you see that developing with Vader, where he just becomes this immovable force, where he shows up and you're dead, effectively. But we do need to wrap up.
Yeah.
and I'm going to wrap it kind of with referencing you to this, and we've posted this before in the show notes as well. If you go onto YouTube and you search Vader Obi-Wan fight reimagined, there's a YouTube that's really good that kind of keeps that level of it's a tank fight effectively, two juggernauts of the Force, but it's a little more than
It's more
ding,
more
ding,
fun.
Yeah.
ding. Yeah.
Okay. For sure.
So I watch that now. When I go back and I watch episode 4, I'm like, okay, here's the fight. Hit pause, go to YouTube. Yeah. Come back, watch the movie.
Yep.
I love it.
That's one of those little crazy details. Hi, I'm insane. But so yeah, all right. I enjoyed this. This was a neat conversation, especially interacting with someone who's newer to it and why, where, how, the story pieces that brought you into it. And for Lindsay and I, it's Star Wars, but there are always stories that draw people into, and I love hearing that. So, and I love sharing that.
Me too.
Yeah, it was a blast. I had a lot of fun.
Dylan, you want to finish with any information? Any last bit? Any last thought?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, I'll make sure you guys have the link, and I would love to just, for anyone in the 42 podcast, that finds himself to be a believer and wants to read a book on prayer and whatever. That's the gift to you. Just remember to use the coupon code the 42 that I've got set up for you guys, and I'd love for you to have that.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you.
Of course.
And Dylan, I think it's safe to say you're not a scammer. At this point, I think it's safe to say. We'll see about the long haul.
You never know. No, I'm just kidding.
But hey, the invitation stands to anyone. You guys are always welcome to come and join us. Talk about your stories, what you're excited about. We love interacting. So, yeah, thank you, Dylan.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you guys.
So, all right.
I'm
going hiking now.
Have a good week. Oh, all right. Go hiking.
Bye.
See ya. Good meeting you guys.
You too.
Yep. Thank you for listening to the 42 podcast. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. And if you want to join in on the conversation, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter to add your voice to the conversation. Thank you.